You know things are getting serious when a commission starts asking simple questions, and the answers somehow make everything even more complicated. That's exactly what happened when Major General Hendrick Flynn sat down in front of the Madlanga Commission. What should have been a straightforward explanation about seized drugs turned into a moment that left more questions than answers. What was said in that room is not technical police talk. It reveals how fragile these systems can be.
This is an operation in 2020. What would have happened to the drugs that were seized? As at today, what happened?
Commissioner Baloy, this is also the matter that I spoke to yesterday. The Mandrake seizure, the 547,
yes,
that went to Isipingo. So, as I've indicated, upon closure of the inquiry, Forensic Science Laboratory are informed of the outcome of the investigation, and they then have the responsibility to dispose of the exhibits. So the current status of the mandrakes, I do not have any knowledge of.
But ordinarily it would be where, if you say the investigation is still ongoing.
Obviously, we after I summoned or requested these inquiries, we've looked into it, identified aspects that need further investigation. So that's why we are continuing with the investigation part.
Okay.
But once narcotics specifically is handed or submitted to the Forensic Science Laboratory, it's never returned to a SAP 13 facility.
Okay.
It is kept at Forensic Science Laboratory until the matter is finalized and then disposed of.
All right, thank you.
Identifying what the substance is, or because
Commissioners,
in this case, I'm thinking June, July, August, September, October, until early November. It's over 4 months. Drugs are stored in a warehouse or in an office. No tests are conducted until the drugs mysteriously disappear.
Commissioners, as I've testified yesterday, obviously it will depend on the storage capabilities at the Forensic Science Laboratory. If there's space and it's not bulk exhibits, for instance, they will accept it. But it has happened, and from my reading of the respective inquiries and case dockets, it's clear that there's multiple references to the fact that upon a request being made to FSL, they were informed that they do not have storage facilities available, obviously based on a heavy workload. So there's multiple cases before this matters that needs to be dealt with before these exhibits can be submitted. So obviously it prolongs the submission of the exhibits to the Forensic Science Laboratory.
But surely there has to be proof that there was a request and that request was declined because of the workload, or that you must wait in line. It will take about 6 months for us to get to your consignment and test it. Is there any paperwork that reflects that all of that was done?
In some instances, yes, Commissioners.
In this specific case?
But no, predominantly it is inquiries that was made telephonically and then entries made in the SAP-5, in the investigation diary.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioners, what I can perhaps also add to my statement here, in this matter specifically, due to the proper manner in which the investigation was conducted, the evidence collected in this case was lawfully transmitted to the United Kingdom upon their request, obviously by means of a mutual legal assistance application. And the UK authorities managed to prosecute an individual in the United Kingdom and obtained a conviction on the matter relating to the facts of this narcotics. So it's just proof of the transnational nature of these offences.
General, let me apologize to you and Advocate Silo. My questions related to the Port Shepstone drugs. but in your further response, it seems like you were talking about what is in paragraph 5 of your
Yeah.
supplementary statement. So my questions were aimed at the Port Shepstone drugs that went missing. So sorry if I was not very clear.
Perhaps, General, at least for the sake of tomorrow's readers, so that there is no confusion of the transcript, the question Commissioner Khumalo had posed was presumably any request to the FSL would be in writing. That was the first. And I think you confirmed that it is expected to be in writing and recorded somewhere, and where the FSL is not in a position to store the drugs from a recent seizure because of lack of space, they would equally indicate in writing. So there is a record of the request and how the request was dealt with. Would that be correct or not necessarily?
Commissioners, I'm not 100% sure in terms of the Port Shepstone matter. I was speaking in general about my observations throughout the inquiries that I've analyzed. And there it's my observation that predominantly it's being done telephonically. So I'm not 100% sure in terms of the Port Shepstone matter. But I believe we can clear that up.
Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Which then, your answer raises a question for me. To the question Commissioner Khumalo posed, it would not be reasonable of us to expect the request and the response to the request to follow a stated format, be in writing, addressed to a specific unit head within the FSL and responded to in writing. That is not your experience and practice, so we should not expect that to be the case in all, if not most of the cases. And I'm relying on your experience here.
That's correct, Commissioners. But as I said yesterday, when it's inquiry investigations, and it's not, for instance, a court matter, there is not that pressure on the investigation team to get the investigation finalized like in a case docket that is currently before court. And I've indicated that there is a mechanism in place where we can request the Forensic Science Laboratory to prioritize an investigation. But I think it's neither here nor there. It's important that whenever there is such bulk seizures being made, that it in any event, whether it's a case docket or an inquiry, needs to be a priority. And requests need to be submitted then to the Forensic Science Laboratory for urgent submission.
Thanks, General. I think perhaps I was somewhat inarticulate in my question. We are trying to determine what is the general process in engaging with FSL. Is there a prescribed process or manner in which a request to the FSL must be made? And does any protocol require that it be in writing and that FSL respond to that request similarly in writing? Is there such a protocol or not?
I'm not aware of such protocol, Commissioners, but logic dictates that if it's in writing, it cannot be disputed, especially if there's proof of
Yes.
a receipt.
Maybe, General, if you look at page 110 and see if that's the paragraph starting C. The heading is on 109, submission of illicit drugs for forensic analysis. And then it seems the discussion you're having with Ms. Sillo is covered at para 6. C rather, C and D. E even. And it seems that's all that regulates what should happen.
Yes, that is what I testified yesterday as well, Commissioner Baloy, is that upon submission of the exhibits to the Forensic Science Laboratory, it needs to be accompanied by this covering letter. That is acknowledged then, so you get an acknowledgement of receipt. on the date that it was submitted. So that is indeed being complied with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloy. I think, and I'm going to test this, I think perhaps it's become clear in my head. The section that Commissioner Baloy just referred you to deals with the submission of the exhibits to the FSL, and it prescribes a process that must be followed.
That's
and
correct.
It does prescribe that there must be a written request and the like. The question, I think, General, why could I say General? Commissioner Khumalo. The umpteenth time, I do apologize, Commissioner. The question that Commissioner Khumalo and I think, were interested, the answer there to in, was relating to the request to FSL for storage, where FSL responds that it doesn't have storage capacity. So it's not the actual submission of the exhibits to.
Yes.
So then I'll take a step back. You remember in the morning when we started, I pointed out to your section of your statement, and I think General Musikiri also points out that when a request was made to FSL, it was rejected because FSL indicated that it was not a clean lab scenario. You recall that conversation?
That's correct, Commissioner.
And your view was that that rejection on that basis was correct because they ought not to have called FSL. It is LCRC they ought to have called. Articulate your answer, please, for the record.
You are correct.
Okay. So then we shouldn't confuse ourselves by seeking to find a formal written request to FSL for purposes of storage in circumstances where the exhibits were not being handed over to FSL. Would I be correct in that?
That's correct, Commissioner.
Okay. I think I'm clarified.
Advocate Silo, my concern, General, is looking at how the exhibits were stored and how they were recorded and the shortcomings that Chair listed yesterday. Remember, he went up to 9. I think Advocate Waloen Silo added 2 more. From where I'm sitting, and I could be wrong, but it looks to me like there was never an intention to submit these drugs to FSL. There was never an intention to have them tested because of how they were handled throughout and how they were recorded. It raises concerns to me that it doesn't seem like there was ever an intention that these drugs will go to storage in Pretoria or that they would be tested so that we can be 100% sure that it was cocaine, 541 kilograms of it. Because I cannot understand how there is no paperwork saying to FSL, at some point when you do have capacity, we would like you to take these drugs. We would like for them to be tested so that we can ascertain that this was indeed cocaine. And if there's a need for people to be arrested and prosecuted, that can be done. What is your comment on my observation? I'm not stating facts, I'm just stating an observation.
Commissioner Khumalo, you are 100% correct. I also referred to that yesterday in the same manner as you have summarized it now, that it's my strong view that there was never an intention to submit it to FSL. And that's why I'm reflecting now on all the other cases where predominantly the crime scenes were dealt with correctly and the exhibits found its way into an SAP 13, remained in an SAP 13 at the police station. It was never stolen or tampered with and then submitted to the FSL. Whether it was a year later, I think for purposes of this exercise, it's irrelevant. The fact of the matter is it was not stolen at the police stations and it arrived at the Forensic Science Laboratory intact.
Thank you, Commissioner Khumalo. And General Flynn, I think we're dealing with the matter at your paragraph 5, that incident that you said there was liaison with the British authorities and resulted in convictions in the UK. Are you in a position to comment about any prosecutions or convictions arising from that drug seizure of 8th May 2020 in South Africa? It's a yes or no. If you don't want to unpack, you don't have to. I just want to know what progress South Africa has made.
There was no prosecution up to date in South Africa, Commissioners.
No prosecution to date. Okay. I'll leave it there. I'll not probe any further.
It sounds like at best you would say that no agency has been claimed for the absence of the LCRC in Port Shepstone.
Well, Commissioners, as explained by Colonel Jacob, he indicated that the scene became busy with the perhaps individuals arriving at the warehouse yard. But I also explained that that's a controlled environment already per se, as it's a warehouse. And it could have been easily contained where an outside perimeter and inside perimeter could have been deployed. And they could have decided how big that perimeter needed to be in order for them to properly deal with the scene. I also said that there was no need to transfer the crime scene or the exhibits seized from the crime scene to Isipingu before all the necessary investigations were done at the container.
I guess importantly really the question is, has Colonel Jacob anywhere stated or given a reason why the LCRC was not called? We know he called the FSL, that's what the records show, or what is alleged, but he hasn't said anything about, or has he said anything about why the LCRC was not called?
I'm not aware of the detail in relation to that aspect, Commissioner Baloy.
Thank you, General. At 11.3, you say no samples from the exhibits were submitted to FSL whilst the exhibits were still in storage. So the booking, I thought the evidence we had involved that some 7 bricks were taken out supposedly for...
Commissioners, this referred just to the cases that I've explained here now.
To Port Shepstone in
it does not relate to the Port Shepstone matter where samples were taken.
Okay, thank you.
And then submitted to FSL in Amanzimtoti.
Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you, Commissioner. You may proceed, General.
And that's the end of this statement, Commissioners.